What do you want to do when you're older? Think of the one thing you've always wanted to do. What do you want to contribute to the world? And what career do you want to have? The question I'm going to pose to you is, why aren't you doing it yet? A year ago, 2 years ago, I was 15 years old, working in a minimum wage job, just like so many other teenagers, and I was asked this question, and it completely changed my life. Because, as you can tell from this picture, I've always wanted to be successful. And while my definition of success has changed significantly, at the time and still today, my goal is to be a CEO. And I had no response as for why I wasn't doing it yet. And so I decided to start a company. I was 16 years old, and I decided there were two options. I could either go into patenting, bring something completely new, revolutionary, change the way people buy things, act, think, and live. Or I could, start a company that's already kind of been done before, maybe throw a twist on it here and there. And so as a young person who thinks that they have the ability to change the world immediately, and don't get me wrong, we do under the right circumstances, I chose to try and patent a product. And pursuing patenting, a couple of things happened. First, I realized that I was rather insignificant in the business world because of my age. I emailed about 300 people, lawyers, consultants, anybody who could help me out, to just give me some advice on where to start. I got 2 emails back. One was probably the nicest worded rejection letter I have ever received. The other one was the exact opposite, a very, very horrible rejection letter. So I decided then that I had to reach out to somebody, and my one mentor at the time was a gentleman named AJ Hajan, who is a consultant at Accenture. And he introduced me to the Learning to Drive model. He said, Andrew, what you're trying to do is learn to drive in a Ferrari. What you need to do is get yourself a Honda. And so I did. I started up Quarry Clothing Co., which is a custom printing and clothing organization that gives 25% of profit to young entrepreneurs to start up their own businesses. And we've actually developed to become one of the largest ones in Vancouver and the only one in BC that has this giving model. Also, we were able to sign multinational corporation wholesale deals when I was 16 years old. But this is a classic story. Kid goes from minimum wage job, starts a company, finds stuff that makes his life a lot better, blah, blah, blah. You know how it goes. In fact, I've got a friend from the UK who has the exact same story. His name is Josh Ballinan. And Josh started up when he was 13 years old. His life savings were 500 pounds. He sent all of that money, everything he had, to China to build a robot. Today, he's the CEO and founder of RPD International, a £1 million valuated distribution company that runs out of the UK. But what people fail to weave into the story of Josh and of myself is the failures that we both had. Josh was working as a freelance consultant for multinational corporations at the age of 14. And when he revealed his age, making 10,000 pounds a week at a time, he was fired from every position that he had. The thing is, people like Josh and I exist in the world, whether it be in business, sciences, arts, anything. We're out there. But the problem that we face, and what I want to address today, is that so few young people actually enter the professional world. And that is the young professional's dilemma. So what I've learned from my own story, and from that of Josh, and from that of so many other young people that I've had the opportunity to speak and work with, is that the limitations to youth professionalism are trifold. They are economic, educational, and social, and these barriers have to be removed. Today, I would like to introduce you to some of the solutions I have found that can be applied to 67% of the world's countries and will take only a year to implement. And let's start with economics. The economic limitations to youth entrepreneurship and to youth professionalism are everywhere, but I'd like to focus and illustrate this with an example. So again, this doesn't necessarily just pertain to business, but let's use myself for an example. In order to start a business, you have to incorporate, and usually you have to trademark your logo and do all that sort of thing. Now, those costs are going to change around the world. Wherever you go, those costs are not set. But using British Columbia, where I'm talking today, and my own experiences as an example, I'd like to share with you some of the issues. First off, minimum wage here in British Columbia is about $10.25 an hour. As I mentioned earlier, most young people work at this wage and in a job with no opportunity for advancement and a lack of applicable skills being learned. So it costs you about $1,000 to $2,500 to start up a company here in British Columbia for this incorporation and trademarking. And again, that changes all around the world, but it's similar to that. So that means we're doing 98 to 244 hours of labor just to starting a business. That does not mean that here's all my time spent working and now I've got a business. No, that is just to gain the right to do that. That is absurd. And say you are as ambitious as I was when I was 15, 16 years old, and you want to go into patenting, multiply that by 20. We're looking at 1,952 hours of labor to earn the right to starting a business. That is absurd. So I'm telling you, and you must agree, this has to change. And I'm not just here to tell you that it has to change. I am here to tell you exactly how. Just a few of these solutions. We can change this. And this is not just a business thing. This is across all of the strands. We see artists, entrepreneurs, scientists, everybody running into this exact same problem. These limitations come from taxation, registry costs, licensing costs. These costs are across every field to start an organization of any kind. So how do we kill this? Well, first thing we have to do, give young people some money from the government. I had to work for 2 years in a job that I grew to hate, learning skills that I probably won't use again, just to starting my business. If we give these grants, that's going to change. At the same time, we need to raise that minimum wage so that if I can't get a grant, I spend less time in that position. Finally, we need to decrease the cost of registration because for young people to start an organization these days, it is simply too expensive, no matter where you go across the world. So let's just say we do all of this, and I've given you all this money, you have so much cash, I can totally go out and do this now. Unfortunately, you still can't, because thanks to education, you likely don't know how. Educational limitations to youth professionalism are everywhere, and education is a huge issue. And the reason education is a huge issue is because it's viewed as a huge solution. Governments across the world will tell you, yes, we're investing in our future, we've given X amount of money to youth to go out and be educated, we built schools here, here, and here. And that is great, I'm not taking away from that. What I'm saying is that what we teach in those schools has to be applicable to the outside world, because you can take a textbook and apply it to the world, but you can't take the world and throw it in a textbook. So let's just think about relevancy and education. And again, to illustrate my point, I'd like to use my own example. Now, as of this past week, I have finished the International Baccalaureate Diploma program and will be going off to university next year. But that program that I took in high school was a little bit interestingly structured. And it's not the only program like this, because just because I had to take everything that I did, I ended up taking classes that I probably won't need. And what I've learned is that not every fact is needed by every single student. And again, I will illustrate this with an example. See, in the past year, I've taken 390 hours of my time and spent it in a biology laboratory. 1 hour into that 390, I could tell you I didn't want to be a biologist or anything to do with sciences. And yet, because of the way my programs broke down, I had to take it at the higher level. So I sat through 389 hours of classes that I really won't use again. And I spent 650 hours, if you include the homework, on that course alone. And that's not to pick on biology. Biology is not the only subject like this for me. I had 4 or 5 of these in high school. And I spent all this time. Imagine if I'd spent that working on a product that I could actually patent, or a business that I could actually run. That is a much better use of my time. And what biology did, that educators wanted it to do, was broaden my knowledge. Oh wait, no it didn't. It didn't broaden my knowledge at all, because what I got was this huge body of knowledge over here. And it's great. I'm probably maybe going to draw on that when I get a cold and I go to the doctor, or for whatever reason if I work in biotech. And to some people, this knowledge is their life. But what taking biology failed to do, while giving me all these facts, was broaden my passions. I still have the exact same interests that I had when I came into that course. And for some people, yes, that changes, but the percentage of change is simply not enough. So the other reason we need to do this is that jobs simply are looking for one structured person to fill their position. The job market today is filled with people who go through education so many times. If you go on any job site, you will find somewhere in there saying, oh, he needs this qualification, she needs this qualification, they need to have done this, this, and this, and it's an educational qualification. And if every candidate that you interview has that qualification, then how do you differentiate between those candidates? The answer is simply their marks. I mean, that's how we're doing it. We're literally taking people who can memorize things and telling them, okay, here's your ticket to the top, you can have this job. In my opinion, what we need to do is allow people to pursue their own interests. Because then what we have is a completely diversified job market. We have candidates for positions that have just got this huge passion for what they're doing. And I can guarantee that you at home, you in the audience, I myself, we all know somebody who hates, and I mean hates, their job. They don't want to go every day. We can change that if we allow people to pursue their passions and find a job that genuinely interests them. So what we have now in education is something structured. The difference between structured and individualized education is structured education is a pursuit of knowledge. We tell students they go through classes and they will learn these facts and we get them those facts, but they may not know how to apply them. An individualized pursuit of education gives you, yes, that knowledge, but what it also pursues is passion. We need to breed passion in young people. We need to get people interested in learning, working, doing things professionally, and pursuing their passions at a professional level. So we have to remove these educational barriers. Let's diversify the job market. Let's allow people to be excited to work. Let's encourage people to pursue their passions. Let's get them in the field, working alongside leaders. Let's get them genuinely engaged in what they're doing. Educators, if you give us room, we will fill it. Allow us to individualize our education. The best way to learn about the world is in the world itself. So let's say that I give you all this money. I've allowed you to pursue your passion. You love what you want to do. You've got the money to do it. But can you then do it? Well, you're capable, you have the money, you should be able to do it, but unfortunately society still has something dreaded, something that I have been exploring the past 2 years in talks, my own adventures everywhere, and something that so many young people are faced with. That is the young label. And the young label works like this. I am not an entrepreneur. I am a young entrepreneur. And immediately when I throw that word in there, it changes your perception of who I am as a person. And that, unfortunately, is the case. Because there are two ways that you perceive me, especially if you're an adult. Number one, I am inexperienced. I have not done enough things to be qualified to enter the world of entrepreneurship. Number two, I have potential. And the dilemma that every single young professional faces is proving themselves to be a person who has potential and not a person who is inexperienced. And if you want to tell me that the young label doesn't exist, that people don't discriminate when giving out jobs and opportunities based on age, I will argue that by referring you to a law or constitution, because every single country in the world, this is a fact, has a minimum age for something that does not pertain to health. And that idea is completely ridiculous, that somebody has to be of a certain age to work, to be of a certain age to take on a project. I was not 18 when I started a business. But you're supposed to be 18 to register, so I had to do it thanks to the help of my parents and mentors. I mean, we're limiting such a large demographic. We're taking youth and telling them, okay, you've got the skills, you've got the money, maybe you even don't, but still, we're denying them the right to try. And that really has to change. And how do we do that? Well, there's so many large-scale solutions. But the big thing is, social limitations differ from educational and economic limitations to youth professionalism, because social limitations will not change unless youth change themselves. We live in a world where more and more young people are taking on jobs that control the planet. Young people now make up more of the professional world than ever before. But it is still so difficult to succeed as a young person, and the reason for that is that we can't get our foot in the door. Recently, I had the honor of speaking with the CEO of Aritzia, Brian Hill, and he told me that now is more difficult than ever before to start up your own business because such huge businesses control so much of industries that you cannot get your foot in the door. Regardless of how competent you are, the difficulty for young people is just making connections. Josh Valman, who I spoke about at the beginning, he was telling me that it's so easy now to find mentors, and I agree with him. But what we both agree on is that it's so difficult to find a good mentor. So young people have to reach out. We have to be the ones who take large-scale solutions, huge organizations that provide mentorship, legal consulting, management consulting to young people, regardless of your industry, regardless of your interests. We have to reach out, grasp those, meet the right people, and prove that we are people who have potential and not those who are inexperienced. So all of this, to summarize, looks exactly like this. Economic limitations. First off, we need to provide some government grants for young pros. And the reason we do that is that it's going to lower the average age of people starting up. People won't have to work for as long in minimum wage jobs to fund things. Because really, as young people, we have only a few options as to how to make some money. First, we can work at minimum wage. And second, there's really nothing else. It's just the minimum wage. Because we're not old enough to get a loan, right? We're not old enough to get jobs or experienced enough to get jobs that pay above minimum wage most of the time. And regardless of where you are around the world, minimum wage is insufficient in funding the starting of a business. The final thing we're going to have to do here, first off, obviously increase the minimum wage to again decrease that time that you spend in those jobs, but also we need to decrease the cost of registration and legalities. That's that trademarking and incorporation that I was talking about. Because then we're going to be able to actually start these things. We're not going to have to pay for our right to start a business. We're going to have that right, and we're going to be able to do it. Now, it's my belief that that shouldn't just be for young professionals. Everybody should be able to start a business for free. I mean, that just makes sense to me. Why are we limiting the amount of people that are allowed to enter an economy when jobs are so tough to get? But regardless, young people need it even more. Educationally, we need to individualize education. We need to allow more people to pursue their passions. And that is going to give us people who want to work, and it's going to give us a diversified job market. It's going to completely transform the definition of an ideal candidate. Finally, socially, young people, unfortunately, this one is mostly on us. We need to reach out to these programs that we need to provide. Things like more consulting for free, legalities that are going to be actually helped with at a low or free cost. And all of these things, these three limitations and all of these solutions will do one thing, the one thing that I wanted to tell you how we can do today. All of these things will lower the price of inexperience. Thank you so much.